And now it's time for I Should Be Writing number 407 for April 26th.
Well, I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there. Welcome to I Should Be Writing, the podcast for wannabe fiction writers. I'm your host, Mur Lafferty. And today is a note card day. I've been doing a lot of writing all over the place. Last week, I wrote a scene where I'm like, I want this to be a character reveal, a sense of what you think this character's all about is absolutely wrong, and here's the reveal. And I have a character waking up in a pool of blood. How or why is that blood there? I think it's hers. Who or what caused the injury, I don't know. That's how my brain decided to tell this part of the story. And I'd be more worried, except I kind of wrote 6 wakes like this, and that turned out okay. As I mentioned in a previous podcast, I like the tactile brainstorming tools. So I've used Scrivener, and I use the note cards on Scrivener, and I type up ideas, and it feels sterile and just not very useful, I guess. If it comes to actually getting physical note cards and writing them down with my terrible handwriting and figuring out what scenes go where and where the connective tissue is. I keep saying that word today, connective tissue, because that's what I feel like my book lacks right now. Because I've got, the beginning is mostly tied together, but then I've just got little scenes throughout the book, just kind of strewn around like dandelion seeds. And I don't think my editor's going to want me to turn it in like that. So it's a note card day. I have a big fat stack of note cards here. I have way too many pens. I am one of those people that's a stationery addict, and I found there's a number of pen and stationery. There's a number of pen and stationery subscription boxes out there. So I subscribed to them, and now I have a ton of pens all over the place. Some of them are really nice, some of them are not. I guess that's the way subscription boxes go, but just like the sock subscription box, which I very much loved, I realized that you can have too many pairs of socks and you can have too many pens, and so I had to, sadly, leave that subscription box. And now I'm drowning in pens, so I might as well use them. So I'm going to be making notes, see if I can note card my way into giving this book a little bit more structure. One thing that's neat about experience, sometimes you see people say they went to Philadelphia and they interviewed cops in Philadelphia because they had characters who were cops in Philadelphia. And I'm like, well, can't you just research what it's like to be a cop and then look up Philadelphia on the internet? And then I started taking violin lessons, and this is, I feel like it's a coincidence. It could be my subconscious at work. I don't know. But I have a character who's a violin player in my book, and granted, I've had 3 lessons. I don't know crap, but I do know more than I did when I started, and now I feel more confident writing a violin player just because I know a tiny bit about the violin that I didn't know before. And, I admit it, I've been lazy before, but I realized, through that it's this kind of knowledge is an iceberg kind of thing. The amount of knowledge you do is what's below the water. And what you actually give to the reader is above the water. The thing is that if you don't do what's below the water, what's above the water isn't going to have a huge foundation on which to rest. So, no, you don't need to put the difference between half notes and quarter notes, which I think probably everybody in the world knows except for me. But I didn't know it until recently. But the fact that I do know that means I will have more confidence in what I write when I write about a musician. I have a friend who, I won't name the friend or the book, of course, but was telling me that they'd read a popular book and it bothered them a lot because the author had not gotten specifics of a certain religion right. And it wasn't that they got them drastically wrong. It was just that it was obvious that an outsider was writing it. If you saw Into the Spider-Verse, which was freaking brilliant, the opening scene has Miles getting ready for school. And he's, running through school, running through the house, talking to his mom, talking to his dad. Well, his mom speaks Spanish and English. So, they're discussing things, weaving in and out between Spanish and English. Just effortlessly. And, it's not, we're going to talk in English until we need to say something between us that Dad won't understand. I don't know if his dad speaks Spanish or not, but somebody who didn't grow up in a bilingual household may not think that you can say one thing to a parent in one language and then switch to another one, and it just feels natural. But I believe the director grew up in a bilingual household, and that's how he grew up. And so that rings true because of his experience. Am I leading towards saying something like, you shouldn't write stuff you don't know? No, not at all. But do your research. Get readers who can tell you what that's like. I know some people get their hackles up at this concept of sensitivity readers, but still, think about it. A lot of people try to get scientists to read their books to see if they got the science right. So you get a reader to see if you get a culture right that is not your culture. Well, I need to get going on my note cards that I was talking about, so I'm going to get to a question in feedback so it won't pile up again. But Jonathan writes, I recently got a note back from a short story magazine that asked if they could hold on to it for further consideration. My question is, what does this mean? How far through the process did this piece make it? Does each market, such as Escape Pod, have a different number of levels? Well, first, in case you don't know, I am co-editor of Escape Pod, so that's why I'm speaking from that experience. And most magazines do have a certain number of levels. First, you'll get picked up by slush readers. Associate editors, whatever you call them. And they get a chance to look at your stuff, see if you fulfilled the submission guidelines. And if they like it, at least this is how it works in Escape Pod. If they like it, they give it to our assistant editor, Ben. And if he likes it, he sends it up to us. Now, we are a team, myself and Isbw, and sometimes we may not agree on a story, or we may think that the story's compelling, but we're not sure if we like it. Or we may like it a lot, but may not be sure it's right for Escape Pod. And that's when we put it on hold, so we can think about it for a little while, and then the next time we talk, we will make our decision. So that's how holding on to it for further consideration, that's pretty much what it means. It's we haven't decided yet. You're real close. We haven't decided yet, so let us think about it a little bit more. But it's likely that you did make it pretty far if they were asking for permission to hold on to it a little bit longer. Because I can't see a slush reader doing that. Slush readers look at it and they say, well, this might be a problem, it might not be, but that's not my call. It's a really good story, or it's solid, or whatever. I'll send it up and see what happens. Thank you for the question, Jonathan. And I guess that's it for me right now. I was kind of wanting to record, but sometimes when I don't feel inspired, I don't do it. And then I realize weeks have gone by where I didn't do it. Or I'll be inspired to do it and then not edit it. And then weeks will go by. And I remember when you try to do a weekly podcast, you just do it. On one hand, it's like, oh, you shouldn't force it. On the other hand, that's what being a professional creative is. Yeah, you force it. You have to. That's not forcing, that's called work. But it's time for me, and it's time for note cards, and it's time for a lot of different colored pens, and I'm very excited. If you would like to see my website and its shiny new design, go to merverse.com. If you want to email me some feedback, mightymur@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am @mightymur. You can support the Patreon and get exclusive content at patreon.com/mightymur. And if you like a little bit more swearing, a little bit more back and forth, and more focus on the business side of writing, you can check out my other podcast that I do with Matt Wallace called Ditch Diggers. Same URL, merverse.com, where we talk frequently about the business of the science fiction writing, and we sometimes go into TV and other aspects because we're just trying to answer most freelance questions. So that's the show for this week. I hope you get some work done because you should be writing. Remember, you can support the show at patreon.com/mightymur. I should be writing theme music provided by John Anelio. You can find more about him at johnanelio.com. This podcast is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license.
On TV